The consortium has released the 5th January 2023 the new matured update with the new Balance Datasheet and the new Munitorum Field Manual. About this, I want to remember you that I leave in the description the link about this article of the Warhammer community, and from there you can find for sure the links to the way to download the PDF about the Dataslate Balance 1 and the Munitorum Field Manual. I want to remember you that they are free and they will be available in the FAQ and download about the Warhammer 40k Warhammer community parts, and so you have only to go there and see those things. So we can start to see what has been released. We had the article about the MetaWatch itself, and we can find that there has been brought quite a lot of updates about, because there has been quite a lot of things. First thing, because has been released the new chapter approved Ark of Omen, so the new parts that has a lot of things inside, as new battle plans and so on, secondary objectives, so you have to see about this if you're interested about. I don't think that I'll buy such one, because I don't like such each 6 months a change, and quite a lot fast about the change about other rules that has been done with the Balance Datasheet, the last ones, for example. I didn't like a lot, so I prefer not to do such things, so to give a general sight and then to see. Anyway, we can see that there has been brought, for example, a new type of detachment, and you have to pay quite a lot of attention about this, because it costs 0 command point for old ones, and the only thing that you have to have is the HQ that you have obviously to have. So you have to pay attention that if this detachment is Imperial Knight or Carson Knight detachment, it does not require also the compository slot. And you have to remember that you can choose then one thing of the troops, elites, fast attack, heavy support, or Lord of War that has to be in the number of 3 that you have to add to pay this Ark of Omen detachment. So you have all the 6 command points available. Obviously, then you can include all the other things without any problems, because you can create your own army. So it's really quite important. Moreover, you have also the compulsory to complete this one, so that you can add whatever you want. And remember that using the Battle Brothers rules, the small allied forces that can be fielded alongside the Ark of Omen detachment of certain armies, for example the Asurian and the Drukhari armies in need of something, you can add a battle detachment of Harlequin, for example, while the Astra Militarum Ark of Omen detachment can be joined by a Militarum Tempestus battle, for example, for every use that you can have. So you have a lot of options that are available. Remember that neither the Ark of Omen detachment or your ally detachment cost any command point. So remember again such thing, because it's quite important. And also, it doesn't cost command point. Add units to the strategic reserves. This can be a bit unfair for the armies that were able to put the units aside in the strategic reserves using some command points. Now you don't have even to do such, so remember about such, because it can be changed quite a lot. Moreover, every faction has a new type of amount of secondary objectives available that can be done for general or specific for every army. So even the new ones has their specific secondary objective to reach for, if you are interested about. And you can see some example here that can be quite useful eventually, because it's nice. And remember that then there also a suite of updated incursion and strike force level missions specific, so there are quite a lot of things in such manual. Even if I'll not buy it, it's really quite rich about. Moreover, has been released the new Munitorum Field, as I said, Manual 2023 Mark 1, because be sure that it will be released also other ones. I'm quite curious if it will be done as the last year, that it has been included also in the White Dwarf, and so I'm curious if we see them updated also by the White Dwarf and free, obviously, also about in the site, so that you can go there to see the updates eventually. Remember that also the update about the app, it's automatically. You have to wait about 1 or 2 weeks to be able to see all the point changes in the app itself. but still there is. So if you bought the codes, the codex, you'll be able to find the change update of the points. So it's quite interesting. And then we have some particular thing to notice about the different armies. So for example, the Space Marines seen a lot of decrease in points. Even if I read the Munitorum Field, sincerely there's been so many changes that it's really too long to make such analysis. So really, the only thing that you have to remember is that only the Tyranids has seen I can say a decrease in power, because there has been a overhaul points as amount, so they cost more than before. The other units of the other armies have seen a decrease of points. So you have to discover everything, because there are really quite a lot. Really, if you go to see, every unit has seen a lot of their accessories, a lot of weapon options and so on, decrease or nulled the points that they require and change quite a lot. So you have to see what you're interested about, because this is a quite a long video otherwise to realize. So remember that you have the link eventually directly to go to that part. And then we had the part about the balance dataset. Again, from this link you can access to the balance dataset immediately, so it's quite interesting. And remember that these are really quite important. Then we have some changes explained that we see also in the balance dataset itself, that it's has been removed, first of thing, the armor of contempt. And this it's quite a good thing in my opinion, because I don't think that it was quite useful, and it made worse the Primaris themselves, because the weapons that the Primaris themselves has were useless against other models of the cows, for example, in power armor and so on. So I don't think that it was quite good. So now it's been removed and has been changed other options that are more suitable to what it was the required such armor component, and it was the conquer of the objective. So we had to see quite a lot, because the Adeptus Astartes now has had an important change about the combat doctrines, so that now they can choose if to change or not. And it's quite important, this one, because it was, I think that it was a bit too much fixed, and you had to have specific strategy, for example, with the Blood Angels, to be able to change the doctrine that it was available, or to make some other options. Now you can choose, and so you can be more free about what can be applied in that specific battle round. So it can be quite amazing. Moreover, once the objective has been claimed by Space Marines troops, for example the Intercessor or the Infiltrators, remember only the troops, then this remain claimed until an enemy unit make it his or her. So it's quite important, because it's a bit what it is in Age of Sigmar. So it removed such practice from the other main game to this one. It's only applied about the Adeptus Astartes, but still it's quite interesting, because you can adapt quite a lot your armories eventually. Then we had about the Chaos Demons, that has seen a change about the flames, that now does not have the flames that are automatically but on a 3+, and it's much better, because it was a bit problematic that really torrential flames once deployed. Then we have something related about the Harlequins, so much that now they have received something peculiar, because now you can make that the invulnerable save of the Harlequin units will not be iterated, and it's really quite interesting. So we'll see better later, but it can be quite nice. About the Tyranids, we've seen quite a lot of underpowering about this, so that they've seen, as I said, an increase of point and not a few. And then we have also that all the previous dataset modifications are still in effect, and in addition, the overrun strategy can now be played on core units. Furthermore, Biovors, Harpies, and Sporocysts can no longer create spore mines or mucoid spores without costing any reinforcement points. So it's quite problematic, this one, for the ones that was playing such type of game. So quite interesting. So really, it's quite amazing. Then we have about the Chaos Space Marine, that has been a change about the creation of bile as faction. And see here it's on a 4 plus instead that automatically, because it was a bit problematic, but it's not a so big change, but still it's something that you have to remember. We have also about the Adeptus Custodes that has seen the limitation about the esteemed amalgam, the Emperor's Auspice and the Master the Creeds stratagem that has been removed. So now they are more free about this. In addition, the previous charge to the grant objectives secured to the Adeptus Custodes troops unit now has been extended to all core infantry units. And it's quite a good thing, because there are the Allorus Custodians that are now included, and eventually other units in the future if it will be brought on. Then we have about the Necrons, that is seen a small change about the rules of the Custom Dynasty. That means that the dynastic code created with the Eternal Conquerors, which grants objects secured, can also take an additional code from the circumstance of awakening among the other combination. And so this precludes Necron army having both the object secures and the normal move from the relentless expansions code. So it's something that a bit decreases the power of the Necron itself, but there is also the part about the decrease of points of the Necron. So it's not so bad, because you can substitute such with some other things like more units eventually. So it can be quite interesting. And then we have also the Adeptus Mechanicus that has seen the change in the way that here has been done quite a lot of things, because now the Cataphros, Breach and the Destroyers received the core keyword. In reality, this it's a coming back, because they didn't have, then they made ones that they had, that has been brought out again, so now they have again such one. So it's something that it's quite important about this. And moreover, there is that these other units with the bionic improves has an invulnerable save of 5+, and there are a lot of units that gain, so it's really quite amazing such thing. So remember about downloading such ones. We go now to see about the part about the balance dataset to see what has been changed, so we can see directly, because some rules has been the same, others has been changed, so we go to see about them. And really remember that this it's something that it's quite important and it's official. So even if you don't play the Ark of Omen, this will be in game officially, and you have to take at least note about such. Moreover, about the points, that I think that it's the most important part. So now we go to see about the balance status itself, and we can continue. Let's see about the balance dataset Q1 2023. I want to remember that some of the rules of the before balance status as the same things, others has been changed in some way. The first thing that has been removed is the armor of contempt, so I'll avoid it. Others are the same, so simply you can choose or to see the previous video, or simply I'll done after this introduction the part about these rules that has been the same, so the aircraft, the bodyguard abilities and the directing weapons that are exactly the same that we've seen before. So these are, as I said, the same. The only thing that it's missing in the indirect fire weapons is the part related about the Astra Militarum, because that part has seen a new codex, so it's not anymore to be here, but it's eventually in the codex itself. So remember about such, and now I'll make you see the previous ones repeated, because I'll not create again to see the exact same things. I'll repost that part exactly as it is now, and then we can continue. So now we can go to see about the aircraft that say that when mastering your army for a match play, it cannot include more than a single one aircraft, so the models with the keyword aircraft, if you are playing a combat or incursion size game. So it means that are referring about the 500 and 1000 points of the army, more than 2 models with the keyword aircraft if you are playing with a strike force sized army, so the one that it's 2000 points as limit, or more than 3 models with the keyword aircraft if you are playing with the onslaught size game, so the one that reach 3000 points. So this is a change that it's quite important,
because you have a limit to the amount of aircraft that you can use. So you have to pay attention to the models that has such keyword, and it cover all the armies related, so that it can be Space Marines, generally talking, Necron or others that has such vehicles. So pay attention because has been a great change about the way that you can compose your army itself.
There are also other 2 points to notice about the aircraft. The first one is the aircraft units from your army must start the battle in strategic reserves, and it should not be surprising. But if the total points value of a player's aircraft units is more than half of the total points value of their army, then that player's aircraft units must still start the battle in strategic reserves, and then no other unit from their army can be a strategic reserve and or reinforcement units. Remember that with the new rules about such release of the Balance Datasheet, the strategic reserves can be have units without paying command points, but these limit the things that you can pay. So the other rules that satisfy the necessity about the how many units you can put in the strategic reserves, still it's valid. And the last one is that if an aircraft unit has a rule that is triggered after it has moved, that rule only takes effect if that mod ends its move on the battlefield. For example, this means that an aircraft unit cannot drop bombs on a unit in a turn in which it ends a move off the battlefield. This is quite important because it could be quite convenient to make that the same unit move out and bypassing units that are on the border or so on. And so in that case, it will be able to, before such clarifying, release the bombs and still move out of the range of weapons. So it can be really incredible, interesting such change and such detail.
And then we have, sincerely, generally talking, it's quite good, but because I like to play a lot the Whirlwinds, I find it quite problematic, and it's indirect fire weapons. So, an indirect fire weapon is one that can target units that are not visible to the bearer, for example, mortars, mass missile systems, imperial cannon, and so on. And if such a weapon targets a unit that is not visible, for example, that no models in a target unit are visible to the firing units when you select it as a target, then each time an attack is made with that weapon against the target is phase, worsen the ballistic skill characteristic of that attack by 1 and add 1 to any armor saving throw made against that attack. So it means that you decrease your way to hit the opponent and the opponent gain more saving throws. So it's really quite bad. So it's really quite interesting because a lot of weapons that could be really quite problematical because maybe you are hiding some units and so on. In such a way, it's quite interesting. But if you are, for example, using other units that, for example, Eliminators or Rewind, you could have problems because you are really losing something quite bad. Still, if you think about talking generally, it can be really a good thing. So it's up to you to decide how you approach to such type of weapons right now. And then we have a new rule that it's more a change rule that a new rule effectively, and it's about bodyguard abilities. This makes change the end of all bodyguard abilities from enemy models or units cannot target that character unit with ranged attacks to that character unit can use the lookout sir rule even if this unit contain fewer than 3 models. There are some notes to make, and it's that if a unit's bodyguard ability only affect a specific type of character unit, the updated version of that unit's bodyguard ability still only applies to that type of character units. For example, the capital protection that continue to apply only to the cryptic units. And then we have also to remember that the bodyguard abilities are such, for example, the cool-blooded bodyguard, the guardian organism, the guardian protocols, the honor guard, the operatority artillery, protectors, swarm protectors, the vanguard duties, watchmen, and these rules apply to the following stratagem that confer a bodyguard ability to to a unit. So Implacable Guardian, Circuncyl, and Shield of Honor. And remember that the high tyrants within a range of the Guardian Organism's ability gain the benefit of Lookout Sir even if they are characters unit with a wound characteristic greater than 9. So it's really quite interesting this one, because it doesn't seem to change a lot, but it changed quite a lot, because it means that it allows you to have a protector way so that you can target in some way the units, the characters, but you have to pay attention that those characters gain the lookout, so it's more useful in such a way, and it's changed a bit the way that you can, I can say, use and take note about the character themselves on the battlefield. So this, even if it's not so amazing, it's a way to make that those units are even more interesting, because it's a way to save those characters even more, because it can be that they can save a lot. So pay attention, because this it's a subtle change but important one.
About the Casus Demons, as I said, it's the part related about the fire weapons for the flames, that now it's make that it has to make a free plus, as I said before, to use the flames instead of be automatically. So you have to remember about such one. So you have to make the ballistic skill, then the normal wounding, and then the saving and so on. So remember about such change, because for the ones that play the flames, it can be really quite important. And I've had the part about the Space Marines that has seen quite a lot of change from the removal of the Armor of Contempt to that change about the combat doctrines, that now you make that if every unit from your army has the Adeptus Startes keyword, excluding the Agent of the Imperium and the Unaligned unit, as usual, this unit gain a bonus that we see right now, which make that the combat doctrine is active for your army, so that during the first battle round, the Devastator doctrine is active for your army. From the second battle round onwards, at the start of the battle round, you can change which combat doctrine is active for your army as follows. If the Devastator doctrine was active for your army during the previous battle round, you can change it to the Tactical doctrine to make it active. And if the Tactical doctrine was active for your army during the previous battle round, you can change it so that Assault doctrine is now active, but you can choose to make, and it's not something that you must do. So it's quite important to change. Remember that the Devastator doctrine, Tactical doctrine, and Assault doctrine effects remain unchanged. Then you have to add the following bullet point to the detachment abilities on the Adeptus Astartes detachment. At the end of your command phase, if one or more Adeptus Astartes troops units from your army are within range of an object marker you control, that object marker remains under your control even if there are no models within range of it, unless your opponent controls it at the end of any subsequent phase. So it's what we've seen before, but detailed, and it's really quite important to remember such change, because it changed completely how you work for both the combat doctrines and the keeping the objects themselves. So it's really quite important one to remember. Again, the death card it's the same as we've seen before, so I simply make you see my description about such. It's quite simple, but we see right now.
The Death Card Codex, and here we have an important addition to the detachment abilities of a Death Card detachment, and it's that units with the keyword Blightlord Terminatus and Death Shroud Terminatus in a Death Card detachment gain the ability Objective Secured. So it's really quite important, because it's really a way to make even more solid the Death Guard itself. So pay attention about such, because if you are going to play the Death Guard, it's important to remember such point.
Then we can see about the Drukhari that are the same except one point that has been removed. It was the second one in the previous one, that it was the one related about being the change of the second bullet of the Aegis Hunters obsession that has been removed. So this, I repeat, the same, but simply removing that specific part.
Codex Drukhari that see a lot of change also. The first one, it's quite important because it's about removing the keyword core from the keyword section of the datasheets of Talos and Cronos. So really quite important one. The next ones are about the obsessions that it's noted that remain all consuming. The one is to change the first sentence of the Dark Technomancer obsession to read each time a unit with this obsession is selected to shoot, you can choose to enhance any or all of the ranged weapon models in that unit are equipped with. So pay attention about, and the note moreover is that liquefier guns and twin liquefier guns can never be enhanced. The last of the obsession that has been changed is to change the artist of flesh obsession to read each time an attack is allocated to a model with this obsession, excluding vehicles models, unless that attack has a strength characteristic of 8 or more, subtract 1 from the damage characteristic of that attack to a minimum of 1. So there are really quite a lot of change, and you have to understand if it change your way to play with the Drukhari themselves.
Then we had the part about the Harlequins. Here, I repeat, because it's been changed a lot of things, so it's better to renew it. So we had the first point that ignore the table listed in the lack of the lacking god ability. Instead, at the start of the battle, you gain 0 luck rerolls, regardless of the battle size. You can only gain luck reroll, making a luck of the lacking god roll. Then we had to change the liked sedat characteristic to read the first part each time an attack is made against a unit with this characteristic if the attack model is more than 18 inch away and modified hit roll of 1 to 3 for that attack fail. So it doesn't mean that it can anyway attack, so it means that it works only on a 4+. So think about some laser and so on. It's quite important, these rules. Irrespective of any abilities that the weapon or the model making that attack may have. The second part, each time a unit with this characteristic makes a normal move or advance in your movement phase, in your following shooting phase, that unit count as having remained stationary, and this does not apply to the units that are embarked in a transport, because technically is the transport itself, and so they are not able to gain such rule, but it's quite important one. Then you have change the first bullet point of the dark sedat characteristic to read each time a model with this characteristic is destroyed by a melee attack, roll 1d6 on a 4+ after the attacking model unit has finished making its attacks. It suffers 1 mortal wounds. A unit can suffer a maximum of 6 mortal wounds per phase as a result of this ability. The last one, worsen the invulnerable save of every Harlequin models by 1. It's quite a decrease in power about the Harlequins. It's the one that we've seen before, but it's really quite important. If a Harlequin model gain an improved invulnerable save by any means, for example the prismatic boar, stratagem and so on, that invulnerable save is also worsened by 1. So it's really something that you have to take note if you play, because worsening the invulnerable save, it's quite important one to remember. About the Asurianii, they are the same thing except one thing. So the last part, that it's about adding the fire and fate stratagem, you can only use this stratagem once. So except that, it's exactly the same, so much that I repeat and I bring the same thing that I said the last time, simply removing such last part because it's completely exactly the same.
We have different points that we have to talk about. The first one, add the following to Hail of Doom Farflung Craftwood attribute. You cannot select this Farflung Craftwood attribute if you select any other Farflung Craftwood attribute, and if you select this Farflung Craftwood attribute, you cannot select a second. So it's simply or this or nothing else. So you can't have multiple ones other than this if you select this, or you can't have this if you have selected another one. Then we have a change about the psychic action described in the Eldritch Storm stratagem. It's that empower some psychic action, warp charge 5, any number of Farseer, as keyword models from your army that have visibility to the center of the mark you placed. You can attempt to perform this psychic action. At the start of your next shooting phase, roll 1d6 for each unit within 6 inches of the center of the marker you placed. On a 4+, that unit suffers d3 mortal wounds. That mark is then removed. You can only use this stratagem once. So it's important because it's only once at least. Then we have changed the second sentence of the matchless agility stratagem to read, use this stratagem in your shooting phase. After rolling the d6 to determine how for an Asuri unit from your unit moves when it makes battle focus, and reroll that d6.
Then we can see about the Chaos Space Marines that has been changed completely because has been removed what we have seen before, and we make that here we have that change the second bullet of the experiment enhancement legion trait creation of pile to read each time a model with this trait is destroyed by a melee attack. If that model has not fought this phase, roll 1d6 and on a 4+, do not remove it from play. The destroyed model can fight after the attacking model's unit has finished making the attacks and is then removed from play. When making these attacks, if any of the destroyed model's characteristics change as it suffered damage, for the purpose of determining what characteristic of this profile to use, the destroyed model is considered to have 1 wound remaining. So it's really quite important to remember about such because it can change quite a lot the way that you can use. So it's only limited about creation of biles, still it's really quite useful to remember. Also, the Adeptus Mechanicus has seen a complete change about the previous we can talk about them, and has seen this change. So that's been completely removed, and now it has 2 ones that add the core keyword to the keyword section of the following datasheet, so the Cataphron Breaches and the Cataphron Destroyers, and it changed the bionic ability on every Adeptus Mechanicus datasheet to read models in this unit have a 5+ invulnerable save. This affected the following unit: the Skitari Rangers, the Skitari Vanguard, the Cataphron Breaches, the Cataphron Destroyers, that we've seen the last 2 ones as the ones that has gained the core keyword. Then we have the Servitors, the Iron Striders, the Ballistaris, and the Sidonian Dragons. So 2 simple important changes that can complete renew your way to play with the Adeptus Mechanicus themselves. Also, the Tyranid has seen quite a complete change. We had the 3 previous ones that we have seen yet, but I repeat now, and then new ones. So we had that you had to add the following rare organism attachment abilities. So if your army contains 1 or more high talent models, one of them must be selected as your warlord. We have replaced the first paragraph of the synoptic imperatives abilities with if every unit from your army has the Hive Tendril keyword, excluding the unaligned unit, and each of those excluding the Lavian artillery units is from the same Hive fleet, then while your warlord is on the battlefield, synapse unit from your army have a synaptics imperative ability depending on which one is currently active for your army. Then you have when playing a match play game, players cannot swap out the adaptive element of their Hive fleet adaptation at the start of the battle after determining who has the first turn. If they wish to do so, this must instead be done while mastering armies step, so before the battle begins, and the player's selection written on their army roster. So these were the ones that we have seen before, now the new ones. So change the first bullet point of the Leviathan Hive Fleet adaptation synaptic contour to each time an attack is made against a synapse monster unit with this adaptation, and a modified wound roll of 1 to 3 always fail, irrespective of any abilities that the weapon of the attacker may have. This is quite amazing. Then change the first bullet of the Reaper of Obliterax. 2. Each time an attack is made with this weapon, if the attack successfully wounds the target suffers 1 mortal wounds in addition to any other damage to a maximum of 3 mortal wounds. Then we have changed the second sentence of the overrun stratagem to read: select one high tendril core unit from your army that made a charge move this turn. The last one is that delete the last sentences of the following abilities: Seed Spore, Mines, Spore, Mine, Christ, Seed Spores, Biovers, Harpies, and Spirit Chase. This cause we've seen before that has been changed such part. And as designer note, remember that this means this unit cannot create Spore Mines or Moloch Spore mods for free. Reinforcement points are required to add mods to this battlefield, and it's what we've seen before, so it's quite a lot of big changes to remember. Then we go to see about the Adeptus Sororitas that has seen the removal of one of the points, so I simply say the only one that is main, that make that change the first bullet in the gaining miracle dice section of the Art of the Faith ability to read: at the start of each turn you gain 1 miracle dice. It's simply it, and we can move on. And then we continue on the Necrons that have seen some change, but for the most part are the same that we have seen before. What make me quite curious, it's about the cult of the Cryptek and the Legion of Annihilation, because they have some rule that has to follow about the book, the codex. Instead, others that are instead here that they change completely the same working of those rules. So I'm quite curious about if it will be released facts about. Still, we go to see all about the Necrons because there are some change in the middle, so I prefer to redo everything about this. The first part is about changing the command protocol ability as follows. Replace the noble keyword in all instances with Necron characters, and replace the last sentence of the penultimate paragraph unit until the assigned command protocol stops being active while a unit that is eligible to benefit from this ability is on the battlefield. That unit benefits from the selective directive. This is quite important to select and understand when it's changed, and so till when you can apply that specific directive. Then replace the last paragraph with: in addition, if all units from your army are from the same dynasty, excluding the dynastic agent, the Catan shards, and the unaligned units, select one command protocol that has not been assigned to a battle round. There will be typically only be one. That protocol is active in every battle round in addition to the one assigned to that battle round. So it means that you gain one that is available for all the battle rounds. So it's quite important, this one, as I said before, but I repeat, because it means that you can choose one that it's always active, and it's really important, this one. Select which directive your units will benefit from at the start of each battle round. Note that if this additional command protocol is the one described in your dynasty code, this means both of these directives apply to all units with this ability is in your army in every battle round. So, in addition to the protocol assigned to that battle round, the available command protocol are shown below, and you see, if you want, see the list about the ones that are available, because I made an explanation of everyone's about this. This is really quite important. Has been brought the facts about, so it's something that completely renew, because it means that you have a command protocol that it's always active and you can choose the directive that you use, and still have another one. So in some way you select to not have one to activate, because one will be always active, so it's quite important. Then add the core keyword to the keyword section of the following datasheets, that it's Canopte Acanthrites, see the Armor Companion, the Canopte Reanimator, the Canoptech Spiders, the Canoptech Brides, the Fledged Ones, the Locus Destroyers, Locus Eevee Destroyers, Ophidian Destroyers, Scorpec Destroyers, Trarch Praetorians, all Necron Vehicles datasheet excluding the charters. So it's really quite important, because it means that you can benefit from a lot of ability that's are available only for the core units, and these are a great amount, so this is something that you have for sure to remember. Then the last one, that it's what we've seen before, change the second introductory sentence of the Ancient Dynasty rules to read: unless you selected the Vassal Kingdom of Eternal Conquerors Dynasty codes, you can then also select one additional code from the Circumstances of Awakening. And so you have to pay attention about this, because it was specific, as we've seen before, to forbid a combination of the objective secured one to the one that let you march. So it's something that it's important to remember, because it's made this way. So everything else, it's something that you have seen yet, so it's not something completely new, but this it's something that completely changed the way that you can work with, so pay attention. And then we go to see about the Adeptus Custodes. About such army as not being brought any change other than take off a limitation about some stratagems, so everything else is exactly the same. The first one is change the third bullet point of the detachment abilities of an Adeptus Custodes detachment to read: Adeptus Custodes core infantry units and Anathema Psychana troops unit in Adeptus Custodes detachment gain the object secured abilities. We've seen a bit about this before. And the last one, change the Adeptus Custodes keyword in all instances on the Arcane Genetic Alchemy and Emperor Auspice stratagem to read Adeptus Custodes infantry. So they gain in some way a restriction, because it's only rated about infantry, not all the Adeptus Custodes. It's really quite intriguing. Then we had the part related about the orcs, that it's exactly the same that we have seen before, so I simply make a past and copy about this, because it's the same identically, so it's not worth to repeat everything that I just said. So here I'll leave you with the thing that I yet told about.
And then we have a change about the orcs that go to limit them, because when mastering an orcs army, it cannot include more than one of each of the following units. So you have the option to include one of each, but not more than one of each of these. So these units are the Bundaka Snacks Wagons, Custom Booster Blasters, Megatruck Scrapjets, Ruka-Truck Squeak Buggies, and Shock Jumps Dragstars. So these are the units that you have to pay attention that you can't multiply, so pay attention about such. I think that it's a bit of pity about such, but it's such as it is, and maybe in the future we'll change the ratio eventually, so pay attention about such. To the orcs has been added the way that the WAG, called the WAG, works. So the effect that has been as effect 1 call the WAG, that makes that orcs core and orcs charters unit from your army are eligible to declare a charge even if they advanced this turn. Add 1 to the strength and attack statistic of orcs models from your army, and orcs models from your army as a 5+ invulnerable save. The stage 2 is get stuck in, that make you add 1 to the strength and attack characteristic of orcs models from your army, and orcs models from your army as a 6+ invulnerable save.
And the same thing, it's about the towing part about this Dataslate balance. So simply I leave you the same thing, so I repeat everything, so I'll cut and paste here, copy and paste the same thing. So it's simply it, and now we go to see about
Tau codex. I don't like that are here, because they should have their own fuck, because it's a recent codex, this one, so it should not be condensed everything here. Anyway, we go to see about such changes. The first one is to change the second bullet point of the Montka ability to read: each time a mod in this unit make a ranged attack that target the closest eligible enemy unit within the range shown in the table below, reroll a wound roll of 1. The second point that has been changed is to change the first bullet point of the Devastating Counterstrike, the Farsight Enclaves tenet, and read: each time a mod with this tenet makes a ranged attack that targets a unit within 9 inch, the target is treated as having a marklight token. The next one is to remove, so this is important, the keyword core by the keyword section of the broadside battlesuit datasheet. So it's quite important, this one, because it changes quite a lot the way that you create your rooster. And the last one is to add in the following to the repulse impact field and the photon grenades stratagems. It makes that the charge roll modifier incurred via this stratagem is not cumulative with any other negative modifier to a unit's charge roll. So it's really quite important as changing, and they are related about the Tau. So take note about such changes.
To say about such balanced dataset, I think that it's quite intriguing. There are a lot of things that has changed and has to be tied on, because some things I can for sure say that will change quite interesting everything about the Space Marine, for example, about the change of points for a lot of units. So there are a lot of things that can be immediately said that are quite useful. Others that has to be tested, because there are armies that I don't play quite a lot or so on, and I can't say for sure how at the end they will interact with. So it's quite nice, and I'm quite glad, even if I'm not completely sure that this type of complete change the rules in such a way, instead of from the beginning having something balanced, instead of having to balance, because it has not been tested enough. Still, it's quite intriguing, and so I want to remember that you can find the update about the Balance Datasheet and the monitors of the points of the units in the description or from the Warhammer community eventually, so it's not a problem. Still, learn about this, because there are the rules, and many of these rules are something that continue to be promoted, for example, the Necron parts and so on. So it's something that for sure you have to take note. Anyway,
from Dino Mode, it's everything. I invite you to put a like on this video, to subscribe to the channel, to ring the bell, and to comment this video if you are interested in something about this video, or you want to suggest me some arguments for other videos. I hope to see you again to the next time.